Hello and welcome back to Marineford TCG. So this weekend I was lucky enough to head down to the Stockport Store Regional over here in the UK, and of course, as we've been discussing on the channel, I've been playing a lot of Shanks recently, so I took my boy Shanks and went pretty well. I went 4-1 and managed to get a third place placement overall, which is not too bad. I'm reasonably happy with it. Of course, looking to get the win, but you know, it is what it is. Still got my invite to Nats, which was the main thing I was looking for, and had a ton of fun. So in this video, I'm just going to go over the deck list I played, what I thought of it. We're going to go over the matches that I had, and then we'll discuss any changes that I'd make to this going forwards. So, of course, I played Shanks, and I did choose to play the control build of Shanks. And the first part of that is 4 of the Uta. So the Uta Searcher gets your basic curve, it gets your top end, your Shanks, and it gets what I think is one of the most important tech cards, at least for me at the minute, in this lucky row. I'm hesitant to even call this a tech at this point. It's so good in so many matchups. I'll be honest, on the day, I barely saw this guy. I just wasn't seeing him early game, and also I didn't particularly need him in the matches that I got. This is really good into things like Zorro and things like Purple Luffy, but my matches simply weren't those decks, and he ended up not being that amazing, but I definitely wouldn't cut this, because just based on my testing previously, this is incredibly important at the minute. What was very, very good was 4 copies of the Yasop, and this makes a ton of sense when you're playing it with the Uta, but just slamming this down on 5 buys you like 1 to 2 cards guaranteed on that turn. Then if he survives, his when attacking is really good. So into a couple of my matches, this just made it so that my opponents had such less pressure, and I was able to get into that late game where the control build of Shanks is especially strong, much easier. 4 copies of the Ben Beckman, of course. You don't need me to tell you anything really about Ben Beckman. A really good card, just trashes a 6k, and can be comboed with a couple pieces to hit a little higher. 3 copies of Shanks, and honestly, I only played like 2 of these in 5 games, so I mean, do that what you will. I wish I could have seen more, but he just wasn't showing up on the day. Card's obviously very good. Made it so that one of my opponents playing Red Green Smoker, had a really, really difficult lethal, and they did in fact make the wrong call on their swings. Just the defense this gives you is very good. One of my more controversial picks was 2 of the Newgate, but this card was incredible on the day. Round 1 I played Shanks Mirror, and this was great. It took out like 3 things, which is crazy value. And of course, into some of the other matchups, like Doflamingo, this is of course very useful. Combines with the Yasop very well. 3 of the Dragon, kind of wish I was on 4. There were times where I wasn't seeing this, and I really wish I was, especially into the match that I lost that will come up later. 4 of the Rayleigh, I did sort of see too many of this guy at times, but I think that's more just me being lucky, right? Because normally, like, if you don't see this card, it feels pretty rough. I don't think I'd cut below 4, but he's just pretty crazy, right? Gets rid of 1 thing, buys you turns, buys you counter, great card. In terms of 2Ks, 4 Otama, and this was very good, obviously. Comboed to remove the 5-cost Smoker really nicely with my Ben Beckman. Because that goes to 8,000 power, because of the leader's effect on the Smoker, Red Green Smoker leader. This just bringing it down to 6 was relevant in both of those games. 4 of the Chopper, and this is the best 2k of the deck. Playing this out on 4 is just incredible. Obviously, if you need Rue for your matchup, if you're against like a Zorro or something, well, that's better than playing Chopper. But in general, in other matchups, especially in things like Mirror and even into Red Green Smoker, this is just really good. Instantly, with your leader effect, you can free block a 6, which is really powerful, of course. But even just giving you the option to deny, for example, the banish swing of the 5-cost Smoker by just blocking with this is great. And him just being bigger makes it easier for you to counter those swings. 2 of the Lime Juice, this didn't come up other than being searchable off of Uta. Enough said. If you weren't running the Uta, I wouldn't run this, but as I am running the Uta, I am running a couple of these. And for the Hongo, this guy was the all-star of the Doflamingo matchup I played, honestly. Crazy, crazy card. Did really well at locals the night before as well in some of my test games. Definitely better than Lime Juice. I'm fully on the Hongo train. Don't think I'm going to be going for the winner Hongos because I don't like how they look. I like this classic one from the set. But yeah, this guy just being on the board, helping you get a KO. For example, like I said before, if you can play this out and then combo with the Ben Beckman on 7 to remove that 5-cost smoker, that's very good. And then it becomes a pseudo blocker that your opponent has to deal with. One Roger did win me a game. Could have won me a second game if I played slightly differently. I used it to win a third game that I'd already won, but it was funny. I think he was good. I probably would keep the one Roger. It gives you lines that you don't have otherwise once you draw it in your hand. And whilst, yes, the Shanks is better most of the time, this gives you different ways to play the matchup once you know that you've got it. So I do think this at 1 is pretty good. One of the KO Shanks. This was not great, I can't lie. This didn't really come up at all. I had it in the mirror in my hand, and my opponent just never played a 10-cost Shanks. They were just like playing Rayleighs and Dragons, and when you have other ways to remove them, playing this kind of feels like a waste because then you don't get to swing with your leader because it's only 5k. So, I don't know, I'd probably cut this if I was to play this deck again, but he's certainly not bad. 2 of the Building Snake. This was low-key an all-star of the day. This comboed to kill so many things with Rayleigh and Ben Beckman. This was absolutely bananas. 2 Divine Departure was a bit mid, can't lie. This event was not that good. If you go second into Smoke and they don't drop the Shigi, it's great. But outside of that, the KO effect didn't come up as much as I'd like. However, I did really appreciate it as a counter event. Just having a 3k makes your opponent's math quite a lot harder because they like to swing 6 and 8. And if they do an 8, well, Leader Effect plus Divine Departure just gets you out of that, which is very clean. So you could cut this. But with the Uta Searcher especially, I think it makes sense at least 1 or 2. And 2 Bad Manners. This obviously came up. It's just really nice because we play so many bricks. So that's the deck profile. Let's talk about the matches. So round 1, I was paired against a Shanks Mirror, and they were playing the Straw Hat version of Shanks. Which was pretty interesting. I think generally I do like my matchup into the more aggressive builds of Shanks. Of course, they can get a very nice curve early on with things like the 3-cost Sanji into the 5-cost Luffy. But I was able to win the dice roll and I chose to go second, which takes their Shanks on 10 away from them, which is always, I think, in my opinion, the best play in the mirror. There was nothing too crazy that happened in this matchup, honestly. My opponent was just playing out a lot of characters and I was removing them very efficiently. They didn't see the 5-cost Luffy on 5, which was really, really good. And I was able to establish the Yasop on 6 to get me that defense on the next turn. And they played a Ben Beckman, removed my Yasop, but didn't get to apply any pressure to my leader. And then on the following turn, I had the Rayleigh, and I had a Building Snake to combine with it to be able to remove the Ben Beckman, apply a debuff to, I think it was a 3-cost Sanji that she had on the board, and then start developing a bit of pressure of my own with these characters. I also got a Chopper down super early, which bought me like 5 cards in this matchup. Chopper absolutely popped off. My opening hand, I had this. I also drew the second Building Snake, which was crazy, so I had one of these on the board the whole game. There was a weird turn where I actually swung 6k with Building Snake because she had 2 Don open for a Red Hawk, and I didn't want it to get KO'd because of the threat of the Rush Shanks. And I had a blocker on the board, so I was pretty confident I could save the Building Snake unless she used removal on it. So I decided to swing 6 with the Building Snake. It was a weird turn, but it actually worked out quite well. The Building Snake did survive, and it ended up letting me pick up a KO, not on the Shanks, but on a Dragon a couple turns later, which was pretty cool. Other than that, this matchup was just generally pretty simple, I think. I sort of grinded her down throughout the course of the game, 1 card at a time. I went down to 3 very early. She was still on 5 life for most of the game, but my board was developing. I was able to remove hers immediately. So it was pretty good. Round 2, I was paired against a red-green Smoker, and I did lose the dice roll on this one, so he was able to take first. I believe he did develop the Smoker and Tashigi on that 5-Don turn. I'd played a Chopper Blocker, I think it was, on 4. So he had like no pressure on that turn, of course, so I had tons and tons of cards. So when the Banish hit came in, I was able to counteract that. The Banish didn't go through. I actually can't remember the sort of mid-game of this that well, but I remember I was very high on life. I was able to protect my life quite nicely. And then at the end of the game, he really surprised me. He dropped 2 10-cost Doflamingos in a row, which was pretty insane. I'd cleared like the whole board apart from he had a Chopper Blocker left. And then he drops these 2 10-cost Doflamingos. And that really kind of nearly made him win, honestly. It was very, very close from that point. Obviously, the Doflamingo is very good in the Shanks matchup. Completely unsearchable mind, so you just kind of had 2, but hey, it is what it is. We were able to put on enough debuffs with the Rayleighs that at the end of the game, I had so many guys, he didn't have a third Doflamingo, so he had to go for a really iffy lethal. I had like 4 cards in hand and 2 life, and he had a Chopper that was at 3k, a Doflamingo that was at 6k, a Doflamingo that was at 7k, and his leader, and I had a blocker. He mulgunned my blocker, so he only had 8 Don left. And then he did sadly make a little bit of a mistake. He put 2 Don on his Chopper and announced 6k at lead. And then I informed him there was in fact a 10-cost Shanks on the board, so it was not 6k at lead, it was in fact 5k, and used my leader effect, and from there it was guaranteed lethal. My hand was like brick, Divine Departure. I did have a Don open, and then my life was brick 2k. So if he'd done the lethal correctly, there's every chance he could have won. It would have really depended on what swings he'd done. But I think most of the time, if he doesn't just do 5 there with Chopper, it's a win. So we did luck out a little bit there. The Doflamingos really caught me off guard. I wasn't really preparing for them. I have seen it in Smoker before, but it's incredibly uncommon, and it's quite bad into a lot of top decks. So the fact that he saw 2 really that caught me by surprise. But hey, well played from my opponent. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do the lethal quite right at the end of the game there. In the 3rd round, I was playing against another red-green Smoker. I did win the dice roll on that one, so I was able to choose to go first. And this game, I sort of just did everything I wanted to. On 3 Don, I got down a Hongo. On 5 Don, I got down a Yasop. On 7 Don, I got down a Ben. Removed, I believe he had the... No, on 7 Don, I established the Nugates. And then removed his Tashigi. Then he used a Mulgun on my Nugate and took it out with Battle. But it costed him like his entire turn, so he didn't get to develop much else. Then I got the removal on the 5-cost Smoker on the following turn. I can't remember exactly what with, but I do know I removed that Smoker pretty fast. Believe it might have been like a Building Snake plus a Rayleigh, something like that. And from there, he just kind of had no board. I did have a board. He'd remove one of my characters. I'd remove his characters and apply some pressure. I got like 1 character to stick, and it sort of just spiraled from there. End of the game, he had a couple blockers and 2 Don open, and I had a Rayleigh, a Ben, my leader, and I had a Dragon in hand, and I also had Roger in hand. So because he had the 2 Don open for Jisoshi, I was like, right, 8k is a good number, so I swung 8 with the Rayleigh, and he took the life, and then I played Roger and won. If he had sort of countered or blocked, I think I would have just pivoted to playing board. I believe it was either Beckman or a Rayleigh in hat, and so we could have removed the board and just gone another turn. I was in no danger of dying. So it was a win either way, but I did get the Roger win against the red-green Smoker, which was pretty cool. Round 4, I was playing against a Doflamingo player, and I'm not sure if this guy was like a newer player or what. He made a few really poor mistakes, in my opinion. No shade, of course, but yeah, so I won the dice again. The dice were on my side today. I was balling out the dice. It was crazy. And I was able to go first, of course. Again, we got a really good curve. I got Hongo on 3, established that. He played out a Boa. He played a Teach, put the Boa on top, and then played out the Boa with his leader effect. And I took the hit, obviously. I tapped my Hongo, minus down his Boa, and then swung into, played the Yasop, swung into it, 6 on 4. And he let it go, which I thought he would defend it. It's like 2 cards, but he only had 4 in hand, I think, at that point. Because he'd used I forget if he used one Perona or two, but he'd used a Perona, he played the Teach, he'd put a card on top of the deck with the Teach. So he had like 4 cards, and I guess he didn't have the counter. Maybe he hadn't seen any 2Ks. So the Boa left. And then on the next turn, yeah, I think he played 2 Peronas at this point, because he went really ham into my Hongo. He attacked like the Teach into the Hongo, and I used the leader effect. He put a Don on his Perona, attacked the Perona into the Hongo. I gave him a Ben Beckman 1k. He put a Don on the other Perona and attacked the Hongo, and I gave him another 1k. And I think with his last, 3 or 4 Don, he just swung into my life and used the leader effect and left the Hongo there after all that time, which was crazy. And then the Hongo swung back into the Teach, got rid of that, and then died to a red rock trigger. So like, it was the best Hongo of all time. It let me get the KO on the Boa very easily. It killed the Teach by battle, and then ate a red rock trigger. Hongo just was absolutely looking for a raise, I guess, in that match. That was pretty crazy. But a good game. After that, it got a bit weird because I had a board and he didn't. So he wasn't able to put on any pressure. He was playing, I believe it was a couple copies of the 7-cost Doflamingo. Let me straighten this up. Yeah, he was playing a couple copies of the 7-cost Doflamingo, and he kept bouncing my Ben Beckmans back to hand, which was kind of annoying. But it just wasn't really enough, because I'd play like things like Building Snake or Otama to reduce the Doflamingo, and then KO it with my options. And I always had Ben Beckman because he just kept giving me it back. I think the turn that sort of he lost the game, he played I had a tapped Rayleigh and a Ben Beckman upright. He played the Doflamingo, bounced my Ben Beckman, and then just put all 3 Don on his leader and attacked the Rayleigh 8 on 8. So I could just use my leader effect to counter it for free. Like, I don't think the bouncing the Ben was bad, but if he'd just done 7 into life and played out a dude, well, I mean, it's better than doing literally nothing, right? That turn was really, it was a bit of a head scratcher, but hey, it is what it is. We've all made those kind of mistakes, right? And from there, I was able to close out the game pretty nicely. We had a lot of cards. He didn't have a lot of board. It's kind of how it goes. In the late game, we're very, very good into the Doflamingo. And then round 5. So this was advertised as a 6-round event with a top 8 cut. I found out at the start of round 5 there was not a top 8 cut. I did think it was a little odd for these store regionals. Most of them that I've seen have just been Swiss. But I sort of took the shop's word at face value. So I was expecting, cool, I'm probably in top cut already. These last couple of rounds don't really matter. Then we'll see how that goes. And then at the beginning of the round, I was informed there was no top cut, and if I lost, this was the last round. So I wasn't salty. I don't get salty about things like that. Things happen, miscommunications occur. But it was a little bit of a surprise, caught me off guard. And we were paired into Teach, which was sort of the one matchup that I was hoping not to see. We do have a good bit of rush, and I did keep the Roger in, respecting the Teach. And my opening hand had Roger, so I kept it. I was like, surely if we're going to win, we won the dice roll, got second, and my opening hand had Roger. I was like, the pieces are all coming together. And I normally like to stay very healthy against Blackbeard, right? So my hand at the start of the game was something like, I believe it was Roger, Ben Beckman, Yasop, Rue, and what was the last card? I think it might have been a Newgate. I think my opening hand was something like this. So on 2, I drew an Otama on 2 and did nothing. He just did like some searches in the early game, played out a, oh no, I had a Building Snake. Yeah, I played a Building Snake on 2 because he played other feet on 1. So I played the Snake on 2, anticipating if he has the dot Q, he has the dot Q. Otherwise, we can attack into the Lafitte. That's what it was. And that worked out. He tapped the Lafitte, and I took it out with a Building Snake, and then he obviously took out my Building Snake with his leader swing on the subsequent turn, which was fine. But I had a turn where I played out a Newgate, and then KO'd a Lafitte with it. That was fine. Then he developed some, I think he developed 2. He developed either 1 or 2 Jesus Burgess on the turn after this. And they were at 9k, and I just did not draw any counter up until sort of my 10 Don turn. I saw 2k, 2k, And these were the only 1Ks I saw. I played this. I played this. This was the only other 1K that I saw, which is pretty crazy. And normally against Teach, I like to stay pretty high on life, because in that late game, the Burgess swings and the Teach swings are just so enormous that you can't counter them. They're like 9, 10, 11k. It's brutal. So I like to stay on 5 if they're just swinging like a 5 or a 6, of course, in the early game. So that's what I did. I countered out of his first 6, trashed, I believe it was the Ben Beckman, and used my leader effect, of course, to stay high on life. And then I saw like 0 counter for the entire game. I had one 2k and one 1k, and he swung 2 9s into my Newgate. And if I could have defended it, I win the game. I had like a 6-card hand. It was just all bricks. I found like every Rayleigh in my deck. We saw no Tenko Shanks. I saw 1 Dragon. And of course we saw the Roger, but I couldn't quite get him down to 0. The last chance I had was I had a turn where he had the Burgesses down and he had 1 Tenkos Teach. And I just had a Dragon that had been frozen, of course, by the Teach. I had the option of either swing 7, play out a Rayleigh for no effect, or swing 15, and if it goes through, then I win with Roger. If it doesn't, then I'm pretty sure I lose. And I went for that. He had a 4-card hand. I knew one of the cards was a 1k and one of the cards was a Teach. So it was like the other 2 cards have to be 2k 1k or 2k 2k for him to get out of it. And there were 3 2ks in the trash. I know they were only on like 7, so I did go for that. Unfortunately, it was 2 strongers, so he was able to go block 2k 2k. And from there, I lost the game, which was pretty unfortunate. I think if I'd just not countered that early 6, I'd have been fine. But if I saw more than 1 2k up to that point, I'd have also been fine. So I don't know. If you tell me if you think I misplayed there, but I normally like to counter really early, and it generally works out against Teach when you're seeing your top end like your Shanks and your Dragons. Having that 1 extra turn, because they can't just swing on you with the Teaches. So having that 1 extra turn comes up quite a lot. And I decided to go with that line, and it didn't pay off in this game. But well played to my opponent. He played really, really well. I think he did pretty much everything he could have perfectly. He saw the removal in the early game and established the Burgess on good turns with using the Kuzan to draw extra cards. Only turned off my my on plays on the turns when he needed to. He clearly knew how to play Teach very well. And unfortunately, he bubbled out of top 8 at 9th, which was quite amusing. The tournament ended around early and he got no prizes, so it feels quite bad for that guy, especially after he beat me and I ended up in 3rd. That was pretty crazy, but here we are. The winner was also on Shanks. They were on a more aggressive build of Shanks. They got paired against a Zorro in the final round, and I wish I was playing against either of them than Teach. Can't lie, I feel like I'd had a better chance into both those matchups. But even so, I definitely could have played better into the matchup that I was given. Overall, though, I think the list was pretty good. I'll put these back so you can take a picture if you want, although I'm sure you already have. It's nothing too crazy. It's definitely not that crazy a list, right? It's a pretty standard control build. Where's this guy gone? You can go here, you can go here, and no time I can go home. In terms of the changes to the list, I think if you're playing a control build of Shanks, this is a really good starting point. I'd probably cut the pop Shanks. It really hasn't come up that much for me, both in testing and now this cup. It did come up at locals when I was playing against Usopp. I used it to remove a Kairos. But in all honesty, I probably could have done it a different way if I'd used like Building Snake plus Beckman or Building Snake plus Rayleigh, of course. So I don't think it was necessary. I would like to include at least 2 of the Rush 5-cost Luffy. That card's really, really good. And honestly, probably would have helped me into the Blackbeard matchup. Of course, if I'd seen it. What would be cut for that? I'm really not sure. Definitely the Pop Shanks, and I think you need to find at least 1 more cut. You probably could cut the Newgate. It wasn't the best card in the world, but it did come out. But it did come up a good few times over this event. So I'm not sure if I would want to. It's interesting. I think it probably would have to be like the 2 Newgates and the Pop Shanks for 3 Rush Luffys, if you were going to make that change. Am I going to make that change? I'm not sure, but I'm definitely going to look at cutting this Pop Shanks for something. It really wasn't that great. Maybe just a 4th Dragon. I guess that could be reasonable. Other than that, though, very pleased with the list. Every card pretty much came up other than Lucky Roo, who I just wasn't seeing on the day. And I wish I was more, because I wish I had the option of developing like double blockers towards the end game. That would have been really helpful a couple of times to make my lines a little bit easier. Either way, I had a really good time at this event at the Jester Game Store in Stockport. Had a great time. All my opponents were really nice. Event was really smooth. Finished by 3 o'clock, so I was out of there and home in time for dinner, which was always nice. You don't always get that with some of these events. Sometimes in between rounds just drags on and on and on. But no, that was absolutely nothing like that at the Jester Game Store. Judges were great. Sorted the rounds out as quickly as they could. And we even had time for lunch. With all that said, good luck at your store regionals if you've got any planned for the next couple of weeks. I do have one next weekend. Not sure if I'm going to be playing Shanks again. I might mix it up and go with a bit more of a rogue deck next time. So if there's anything that you would like to see me play at the next store regionals, let me know. And maybe I'll consider doing a video on it this week and see how we feel. Currently, I think I'm leaning towards maybe Black Smoker or Black Lucci, but definitely open to any and all suggestions. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.